My book got put in the wrong category. Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Terry and I am the author of 5 fantasy novels. Information will be in the description box down below if you're interested. And that 5th novel, Beyond the Throne, is the subject of today's video. Beyond the Throne came out last Saturday, and if you look at the paperback on Amazon, you will see it's in 3 categories as usual: steampunk fiction, dragons and mythical creatures, and romantic fantasy. Amazon put my book in the wrong category. Now, I have done some Googling, tried to figure out why this might have happened. The weird thing is, it's only the paperback that's affected. The ebook and the hardback are fine. They are appearing in the correct categories. The first 2 categories I mentioned are correct. The 3rd category for the paperback should be epic fantasy, and that is what is showing on the ebook and the hardback. So I did some Googling to try to find out why this might have happened, because my book is very much not a romantic fantasy, and if somebody finds the book thinking that that's what they're getting, they're going to be very disappointed and they'll probably be pretty upset about it. So from my Googling, I found out that it could be due to keywords. Now, keywords are confusing to me. I hate them. I don't really understand them, but the way I do understand them is that your keywords should be any trope or theme or subject or anything that appears in your book that a prospective buyer could punch into the Amazon search bar, and theoretically your book might then pop up. So for example, if you write high stakes epic fantasy, that could be a keyword, except epic fantasy is a genre and they don't want you to repeat your genres because the category should take care of that. So keywords are confusing because you're not supposed to repeat words. So for instance, if you say high stakes epic fantasy, you don't then need to say adult fantasy or young adult fantasy, because the word fantasy is already taken care of by the first keyword you put it with. Theoretically, the fantasy part is applied to any other keyword from then out. So keywords are very confusing. And I think for the most part, those kind of keywords, like with tropes or things that could be found within the book, they're probably most helpful for the romance genre, because I don't find new books to read by searching up keywords. I just find books, and if they look interesting, I read the blurb. If the blurb sounds interesting, I might read the book. But I feel like maybe romance or romantasy readers might find books based on keywords or tropes more often than other kinds of readers. So for instance, if your book is a slow burn enemies to lovers romance, that makes sense to have that as your keyword. So with that being said, I wanted to try to optimize my keywords with Beyond the Throne. I took very great care not to repeat anything, because you're told not to do that, and you're given 7 keywords. These are optional, but you're given 7 keywords to fill out by Amazon, and it was quite difficult to try to describe what this book is about and what you could find within it without repeating any words, and I did still repeat a few. But one of the keywords, and I suspect this is what went wrong, one of the keywords I used was no spice slow burn romance, because there is a no spice slow burn romantic subplot in the book. And this is the only thing I can think of as to why my paperback ended up in the romantic fantasy category. Now, the thing that doesn't make any sense is, as I said, the ebook and the hardback are not affected, and I entered the same categories and keywords for every edition of the book. So I don't know why the paperback would appear in this false category and not everything else. I removed the no spice slow burn romance keyword from my paperback, and I'm waiting to see if this will help. They say it can take up to 72 hours, and as of the filming of this video, we're not quite at 48 yet. But quite frankly, I don't think that this is going to fix it, and so that's why I reached out to Amazon, and I've already heard back from them, and it was less than helpful. So I will read you what they sent me. I filled out the form that they asked for, and it wasn't very good. So Amazon says that my book is assigned to the following categories: books, science fiction and fantasy, fantasy epic, which is correct; books, science fiction and fantasy, fantasy romantic, incorrect; books, science fiction and fantasy, fantasy dragons and mythical creatures, which is correct; and books, science fiction and fantasy, science fiction steampunk. The steampunk, the dragons, and the epic fantasy are what I chose when I uploaded the book. The author can choose 3 categories where they want their book to be placed. Amazon says, well, we only allow authors to choose 3 categories. There are many factors that determine which categories a book will be placed in. Categories you add and the categories shown online won't always match, because your book may be added to additional relevant categories to ensure a positive customer experience. Let me tell you something. If somebody buys my book thinking they're getting a romantasy, that is not going to be a positive customer experience for them or for me. For example, we automatically include books in top-level categories to those selected. So a book in the science fiction and fantasy, fantasy, myths and legends, Asian category also appears in searches for science fiction and fantasy, fantasy, and myths and legends. That makes sense because it is myths and legends. It is fantasy. It is in those things already. It's like a branch. These categories are branches. So you start off with science fiction and fantasy, then you niche it down from there. So you go fantasy, myths and legends, and Asian. It makes sense for this book to also be placed in myths and legends and science fiction and fantasy because those are part of that branch. Romantic fantasy is not part of Beyond the Thrones branch, and it should never be included in that. Please note, we cannot select which categories will be displayed in your book's listing at Amazon. While there may be more than 3 categories assigned, only the 3 with the highest ranking will be visible. As rankings are dynamic, the categories listing can change over time. So basically they told me there's nothing they can do to change it. And I'm like, that's bull. You're Amazon. Nothing happens on this site without your say-so. You could totally change it. But apparently the days of them getting involved and changing a book's category are over. So I said, so is there nothing I can do to get it out of that category? While there is a romantic subplot in the book, it is very much not a romantic fantasy, and I don't want potential readers to think they are getting something they are not. I'm also still unclear why the paperback is appearing in that category when none of the other formats are. The other formats are appearing correctly. And I got back this response. Based on the information and book content, I can confirm the categorization of Beyond the Throne is correct and cannot be changed. The categories you add and the categories shown online may not always match. Your book may be added to additional or different categories to improve the customer experience. Your category selection can influence the inclusion of additional categories, but changing your current categories does not guarantee that books, science fiction, and fantasy, fantasy romantic will be removed. You are welcome to edit the current selection and inspect the effect at Amazon by following the instructions on the listed help article. So basically, I can edit the categories myself, I can edit my keywords, but there's no guarantee that it will have the desired effect. I went back in yesterday and I removed the epic fantasy category that I chose and then reapplied it. But again, I'm still waiting to see if it's made any difference, and as of this morning, it's still listing in the romantic fantasy category, and quite frankly, I don't think it's going to work. I emailed back to say, can you tell me why the categorization of romantic fantasy is correct if the book is not a romantic fantasy? I would like to know if possible how/why my book was placed in this category so I can try to avoid such misplacement in the future. And as of right now, I'm still waiting to hear back, and I kind of think that I won't because both emails were kind of the standard form reply, there's nothing they can do kind of vibes that I'm getting, and I am quite disappointed if I'm being honest. Thank God there is a romantic subplot in the book, because without it, this categorization would be even more wildly inaccurate than it already is. But this would be like saying, oh, your book is a romance and we categorized it in dark horror or something. It's correct. We've looked it out. It's correct and cannot be changed. Excuse me. If the category of the book is not what the book is, in what world can it be correct? Anyway, I don't really care, except that my fear is that potential readers will look at this and see that it's a romantic fantasy, and then they'll get it and it's not what they thought it would be, and then they might leave bad reviews. I honestly don't know how much attention readers pay to the categories that a book is listed in. I would like to think it's not that much. I'd like to think that they're not even going to scroll down and look at that. I think that's more of an author, seller, publisher thing, but I really don't know. And at least the ebook, which is the most common format that I sell on Amazon, is displaying correctly for now. I did not want to go remove the no spice slow burn romance keyword from the other versions of the book, because the last thing I want to do is screw those up when they're currently correct. But all in all, that's a very frustrating experience, and it leads me to another thing that I wanted to talk about. Now, I am aware that I am a cynical person, and this is probably just my confirmation bias coming out, but it just reinforces the idea that there are people who cannot seem to fathom that there are fantasy books written by women, no less, that are not romantasy. The vibe these days seems to be, if it's a fantasy book and it's written by a woman, it must be romantasy, or at least romantic fantasy, and there's a lot of debate over what the difference between those things even is. But I write fantasy with romance. There's always a romantic subplot, almost always. The upcoming book doesn't have romance in it, but almost always there will be a romantic subplot in my books because I like romantic subplots. Quite frankly, I like romance when it's done well. When it's not done well, I hate it, but I like it as a subplot. And the thing about romantasy that gets me is the definition that I found is A romantasy is a book where the romance takes center stage and drives the plot forward. If you're having a fantasy like Beyond the Throne where the plot is to overthrow an evil empire, how could a romance ever be the plot? How could a romance ever be the point? The point is we have to overthrow this evil empire, and that's always going to be the case regardless of whether a romantic relationship develops between two characters in the course of the book or not. So no, I don't write romantasy. I can't say that I write romantasy. Of the book ideas that I have, I think one maybe qualifies for that definition, but I don't write romantasy. I write fantasy, and fantasy with romance. That's it. So for my book that is very much not a romantic fantasy to be thrown in the romantic fantasy category, it just makes me think that there are people that just can't accept that there are books written by women, for women even, that are not romantasy. Like, anybody can read my books. If guys read my books and they love them, that's fantastic. But because I'm a woman, my target audience is probably going to be other women. But that doesn't mean it's a romantasy. That doesn't mean it's even a romantic fantasy. And I ran into this a little bit with the first tour company that I booked for Beyond the Throne's release. I really wanted to go all out with Beyond the Throne. Every new book release, I view it as an experiment, a chance to do something different, see what works, what doesn't work, what I might do differently moving forward, if anything. And I plan on doing a video about this separately. But one of the things I did for Beyond the Throne for release week was I booked a tour, and I'm going to leave my thoughts on that for that video, but I will say that the page for the sign up for the tour on the tour company's website listed Beyond the Throne as an epic fantasy / romantasy. And I have the screenshot that I will either include up here or in the next video. But I have never described Beyond the Throne as a romantasy or a romantic fantasy. Yes, slow burn romance is one of the tropes because it's in there, but it's not the whole point. The point is there's the evil empire and we have to overthrow it. That's the point. But I don't know why it was listed as a romantasy on that website. I've never, ever described it as a romantasy. Not ever. Because I know how important that is with marketing. If you market your book as something that it isn't, and readers pick it up expecting that thing and they don't get it, they're gonna let you know. They're not going to be very happy. So all in all, I'm just very frustrated. I'm not as mad about it today as I was yesterday, but I am frustrated with the lack of communication, the lack of transparency. I don't know how the heck I ended up in this category, even if it was the keywords, because like I said, they're the same for every format of the book. But thank God it is only the paperback, and if Amazon doesn't give me answers, if changing the categories and the keywords doesn't work, there's really nothing that I can do to fix it. It will just probably stay like that forever, short of yanking my paperback off of Amazon, which I don't want to do because then I'd have to probably use a whole nother ISBN to republish it. I'm not going to do that. But short of doing that, I don't know how I'd get it out of that category when I never put it in there in the first place. I would not do that. And yeah, it's just really frustrating. I don't know what to do. I'm a little frustrated with romantasy as a whole. It's everywhere to the point where, again, I just increasingly feel like no one seems to be interested in books that aren't romantasy or even like believe that a fantasy can be just a fantasy. Like there's lots of fantasy books out there that are not romantasy. Is there a space for us anymore? We just get thrown in romantasy, we get thrown in romantic fantasy, whether that's what we are or not. But just wanted to make a quick video to address this because I don't know how much people will notice. I don't know if anyone will pay attention to that, but if they do see it, I did not put it in there and it's not accurate. Ignore that. So in happier news though, I finished writing the draft of Empire Vengeance Book 2, which means that hopefully I should have more time to film videos. I've already got my Q&A video filmed and that will be coming out after this one, if everything goes according to plan. But yeah, crazy times. There's always something that goes wrong with a book release, and I think I ran into a few of them with this one, but it's an epic fantasy with steampunk elements, not a romantic fantasy. So there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. My name is Rachel Terry. I am the author of 5 fantasy novels, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!